goes on in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer.
Zodiac,
a symbol that now stands for terror.
He is San Francisco's notorious Zodiac Killer.
There have been 3 slayings in the Vallejo area.
He has killed 5 and says he's going to kill again.
5 were murdered.
The psychotic killer has already murdered 5.
For at least 6 murders.
Between 1968 and 1987, someone calling himself the Zodiac claimed responsibility for up to 40 murders.
Definite pattern between their killings and ours.
Psychopath who kills for the thrill of publicity.
A man in a mask robbed, tied, and stabbed them, leaving them for dead.
Carried a knife and gun and intended to use them.
One of the worst things I ever witnessed.
The Zodiac Killer has haunted California's consciousness for more than 20 years. A mass murderer making his mark in the 60s by killing, then sending letters taunting police.
The killer sent cryptic letters to the San Francisco Chronicle.
Enclosed was a cryptogram or code as yet unsolved.
We don't know yet.
School children are nice targets. I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, shoot out the tires, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bounding out. That was the threat of the Zodiac Killer.
Are you the Zodiac Killer?
I'm not the Zodiac Killer.
The Zodiac Killer seems to crave publicity. He sent letters and cryptograms to newspapers and the police.
He's an absolutely ruthless, completely merciless killer.
He is probably a psychopath.
This guy is a killer. A mad killer.
He appears to have no conscience at all, no remorse after any of the acts.
I just don't want this to happen again to anyone else.
Zodiac, the uncaptured killer. Zodiac said he shall never be caught. And he's probably still at large.
The Zodiac Killer. Chances are you've heard of him. He's appeared in television shows, music, documentaries, films, and even a porno.
I don't mind getting fucked by you, but I don't like getting fucked by the Zodiac.
However, everything we know about the Zodiac is secondhand. Nobody knows just who he is. He was never caught. The closest we have to deciphering the serial killer is a series of letters he sent to the newspapers in the Bay Area of California, his stalking ground. So much has been written and researched about this killer, there's no way a short video could ever do it justice. Instead, we'll be zeroing in on the city of San Francisco, where he most likely lived, and he killed his last known victim. We'll be touring some of the locations today, along with going into some less known history and fact as we follow on the trail of the Zodiac Killer. San Francisco. This peninsula city measures roughly just 7 miles by 7 miles and holds nearly 900,000 people. This picturesque city receives almost 25 million tourists per year. But the city by the bay has a dark underbelly. According to the FBI, San Francisco has the highest rate of property crime, such as theft, in all of the United States. Starting in the late 60s, well over 1,000 murders were happening per year. So what should make a man who only killed one known person in the city so special? We start our tour at the Golden Gate Theater, located in the Theater District. The first opening is a vaudeville show house in 1922. Performers such as Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, and the Three Stooges graced the stage until it was converted into a 2-screen movie theater in 1954 by RKO. Like many older movie houses, it began to struggle and began showing grindhouse movies in the 1970s, making it the perfect booking venue for a man with an idea. He was going to catch the Zodiac Killer with a movie.
Zodiac, a name that strikes fear to a city of 2 million. A brain that baffles the world's best criminologists. Zodiac. You are doomed. No! The producer of Zodiac Killer was warned repeatedly not to make this film. The San Francisco Police Department urged him not to for reasons of his own safety. Zodiac is still at large. Now see it if you dare. Zodiac Killer in nightmare color.
Plus second startling feature, Frightened Woman.
The first movie to widely use a version of the Zodiac was the Scorpio Killer in Dirty Harry.
Oh! You don't assign. Stop! The murder cases. You just turn him loose.
But another film beat that one by 6 months. A low-budget quickie filmed for just $13,000 by the owner of a large chain of Pizza Man restaurants in the California area. Tom Hansen was no stranger to the film industry. Having worked on several low-budget movies before his restaurant career, he had an idea. The Zodiac loved publicity. He even asked who would play him in a movie. If one was made, he certainly would see it. So Hansen rented out the Golden Gate and held a premiere. Unfortunately, the day I arrived, Madonna was due to play that night, and the Golden Gate was sealed. I did, however, get permission to enter the former hotel building, which was purchased in 2013 by WeWork, and converted into office space for small businesses, startup companies, and meeting space. All 6 floors above the theater have been converted into rooms such as these. Next, I walked a few blocks to the San Francisco Chronicle building, the newspaper which the Zodiac sent the majority of his 18 known letters. 1 year after his first murders, the Zodiac sent 3 identical letters to the Vallejo Times-Herald, San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle. Each paper got an additional section of a cipher he demanded be printed. He would send 1 more letter to the Examiner before focusing almost solely on the Chronicle, even further zoning in on its crime reporter, Paul Avery. The San Francisco Chronicle first began in 1865, becoming the largest circulation newspaper on the West Coast just 15 years later. Its current headquarters was built in 1924, receiving a more modern exterior in 1968, the year before the first Zodiac letter. Naturally, access to a newspaper building is fairly restricted today, and I didn't have any hope of getting in. I could, however, walk around to the back to see the loading bay where the 15 letters along with 4 ciphers were delivered. Unsurprisingly, there's also a guard back here, but he was busy with someone else and I was able to walk up to the loading dock, which is much smaller than I had expected. But the Chronicle is actually printed in Fremont, so in today's digital world, they receive very little physical mail here. I decided to head back to the Golden Gate for one more try. Walking around, one might be surprised to see just how frequent the Zodiac symbol is around us when you actually look. A series of markings on the sidewalk for construction feature an eerily close approximation of the symbol. Back at the Golden Gate, I was in luck. Some doors were open, and I approached the people in front.
I mentioned it last night. Oh, yeah, sure. He thinks it's gonna help.
Hi, is there any way I could just walk in this lobby and take a photo?
At 5 o'clock you can, right over there.
All right. That was good enough for me, so I got in line and waited.
This is going to be sort of cool. I've never seen it.
In 1971, Hansen managed to convince Kawasaki to donate a motorcycle as a prize drawing. Patrons would be given a yellow slip of paper with the words, "I think the Zodiac kills because," and then they would drop it in the slot by the lobby where the motorcycle was displayed. Little did they know, however, that a man was hiding in that display. If a card came through that caught his attention whatsoever, he would push a button, alerting other hidden men to grab that person. The plan was unknown to the manager of the Golden Gate at the time, who returned to the building one day to find a large ice cream freezer had been brought in, where a man could hide inside to see who dropped the letters in. The very men who played characters in the film were the ones in the stakeout operation, including Hal Reed, who played the killer in the film. In fact, screenwriter of the film, Ray Cantrell, got stuck inside that freezer and almost suffocated to death. Coincidentally, at this exact time that Ray was suffocating, a card was dropped in which read, "I was here, the Zodiac." The button was pushed, but due to the freezer incident, nobody got a visual on the guy. However, later, Hansen would go in to use the bathroom when one of the viewers came in to use the urinal next to him. I was unable to visit the Golden Gate's bathroom, but this restroom inside the WeWorks is likely the same style, albeit a single restroom. Anyways, the man using the urinal told Hansen, "You know, real blood doesn't come out like that." At which point, Hansen looked and realized this man looked just like the wanted posters they had hanging out in the lobby. Quickly rallying the rest of the men, they nabbed this guy and shoved him into the manager's room. Now, most people might be a little unnerved if they got grabbed by 6 large men and shoved in a room. But this man remained calm and was so friendly everyone almost immediately believed it couldn't possibly be him. They couldn't link the card to him and eventually had to let him go. But Hansen didn't give up. He repeatedly called the hotel the man said he was living at, receiving no answer. Until finally, someone did. Now, knowing it was really his hotel, Hansen, along with the police, planned to get a search warrant for the man's room until news broke of a faked letter by Paul Avery, and all investigative reports moved in that direction. Hansen and his son have not forgotten this man, however, and they have remained studying him vigilantly. Their exploits soon to be featured in an upcoming pseudo-documentary. Next, we'll head to the only confirmed Zodiac murder site in the city limits. On October 11th, 1969, a man standing near Mason and Geary Streets hailed a taxicab and asked to go to the Presidio Heights neighborhood. Today, Uber is a lot cheaper and easier than a taxi, so I got a ride from Oscar. He didn't know about the Zodiac, but he did share some thoughts on the difficulties of being a driver in today's world.
You know, sometimes I'm shy too, don't talk too much, but you know with who? With women. I'm very, very shy. Hey, Taylor, how are you? Boom. Anything else you need, tell me, okay? Let me play music. And what is the reason, bro? Because you never know with the women. Some women, they have like a bad experiences with Uber dudes, and they try to hit them. They try to ask them for, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing in the city? What do you want to do tonight? And the worst I hear was, can I get your phone? For me, it's kind of weird. Because think about this. Why you want to do that here with a poor lady who want to go home? But boys, Kyle, I pick up a lot of boys. If the guy is here, hey bro, what are you doing? Hey, how old are you? What are you doing Uber? And you are very friendly. After that, they want to try to hit me. But,
I didn't want to ride the entire way to Washington Cherry. Instead, I wanted to get a feel for the neighborhood, and I got dropped off early, just as the fog began to settle in. Presidio Heights is located in the northwest corner of San Francisco, just below the Presidio State Park, which was a former military base built in 1776. Next to the Heights is the Presidio Terrace neighborhood, which was built for the wealthy citizens as a way to keep them in the city after the 1906 earthquake. The wealth spread over to the Heights, where today homes can sell for an upwards of $20 to $30 million. The Homeowners Association keeps a tight eye on the area, and the Heights have some of the lowest crime ratings in the SF area today, though occasionally bad things can happen, even here. In 1971, a bomb detonated inside the basement of the Iranian consulate, completely destroying the house, though there were no casualties. When Paul Lee Stein's second fare for the night asked to be dropped off in the Presidio Heights, he probably figured it would just be an easy and safe trip. The 29-year-old married man had just clocked in roughly an hour before taking this passenger. He was working as a taxi driver to pay for college. He arrived at Washington and Maple to drop his passenger off, but the man requested he go 1 block further, to Washington and Cherry. Upon parking, Stein was killed instantly when a 9mm bullet entered the right side of his head from behind. The killer then exited the vehicle and opened the front passenger side door. At this same time, 3 teenagers were looking out from the upstairs window across the street as the man began wiping down the cab as well as removing part of Stein's shirt. This is what their view looked like in 1969. And this is what the view looks like today. Somewhat disturbingly, this oil stain is the approximate location of where the taxi was parked, where blood no doubt did drip out. When David Fincher was making his 2006 film Zodiac, the neighborhood was not thrilled to have Hollywood on their door, cluttering up their quaint streets, and ultimately only a few seconds of the actual area appear on film. The rest was recreated on a soundstage. The 2005 film, The Zodiac, made no attempt to replicate the actual neighborhood, and we won't even mention Uli Lammel's 2 atrocious Zodiac films. Back to the scene, the teenagers had rung the police to report that a white male had just killed the cabbie. However, by the time information was relayed to patrol cars, the suspect was mistakenly mentioned as being a Negro male, something I'm sure many people are remarking on the comment section below. We'll return to what the killer did next in a bit, but for now, let's stay at the crime scene. Homicide inspectors Dave Toski and Bill Armstrong arrived to the crime scene that night, believing this to be a routine homicide, and unlike the movie, the 2 were not assigned to the Zodiac case until after he took credit for this murder. Toski was a former Army veteran and worked at SFPD from 1952 until 1987. The events of the Zodiac case would propel him into popular culture, where he served as inspiration for both Steve McQueen in 1968's Bullet and Inspector Callahan in Dirty Harry. He also caught the eye of the then unknown George Lucas, who went on to name the Tosche Station after him in Star Wars. And though the scene ultimately ended up on the cutting floor, Mark Hamill still mentions it in the movie.
Take these 2 over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Tosche Station to pick up some power converters.
The teenage witnesses were interviewed and provided the infamous Zodiac sketch, which is believed to be the most accurate one ever provided. It was also discovered that Stein's car keys, wallet, and part of his shirt were missing. Pieces of the shirt were included with many later letters to confirm their authenticity. While I was filming this intersection this foggy night, I was quite surprised at just how empty the city truly could be. The entire time, a total of 2 cars passed by. Someone could truly get away with murder here. After taking the shirt and items, the teenager reported that the killer went about wiping the car off. However, there was 1 set of prints found which are believed to be the Zodiac's, although he would later claim that he had placed clues for the police to find and lead them in the wrong direction. Next, he casually strolled north on Cherry Street, and there have been multiple accounts of the following events, but 2 police officers did in fact pass by the Zodiac killer. According to him in a later letter, they asked him if he had seen a Negro male in the past 10 minutes, to which he replied yes, that he had been running in the opposite direction. The police took off, and it would not be for several minutes later until they learned their blunder, and one of them returned on foot to try to apprehend the suspect. However, by this time, he had already vanished into the Presidio woods. Some of the best search dogs were brought in to track the killer, but it amounted to nil. The Zodiac would haunt San Francisco for 5 more years, by which time he claimed he had a total of 37 victims. The Zodiac stated he would hide his murders after this point, leaving Paul Stine to be the last confirmed murder. One final piece of information I want to cover took place the month following this last murder. Police responded to the home of David Martin, who had attacked his wife in a drug-induced rampage. When the police arrived, Martin had a knife to his daughter's throat. He was shot, but interestingly, his last words were, "I'm through. I'm the Zodiac. That's me."
The Zodiac! That's me! I'm the Zodiac!
Did the dying words of a drug addict have any meaning? There were no known murders after Martin's death, and take a look at the side-by-side to his face in the composite drawing. Despite this likeness, Martin was quickly discounted when his fingerprints did not match those found at the scene, nor was any other evidence ever found. He quickly would fade his footnote, as the real Zodiac would include pieces of Stine's shirt in his future correspondences. Who was the Zodiac? Many people have tried to capture him, be it by detective work, books and research, and even a clever gag in a theater lobby, but all have failed. Perhaps he was as his final letter to the public stated, a red phantom. Red, with rage. It is estimated that if he were still alive, the Zodiac would be around 80 today, which means he very well still could be out there, walking behind you right now, driving in that car, or maybe he's watching this video.
We are learning more all the time, but I'll put it this way, there is no one suspect that we're focusing on at this time.
After last month's letters and the murder of a cab driver, the Zodiac threatened to kill children on a school bus. So bus guards were provided in many Bay Area counties.
School children make fine targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning. Just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
Now, what are you doing to protect the school buses, particularly in San Francisco?
In San Francisco, we have been, since the reception of this note, we have a number of plainclothes officers following buses in the morning and in the evening.
Police units from various agencies using marked and unmarked cars follow buses on their runs to and from school. Assisted by aerial patrols and some buses now equipped with two-way police radios, the massive patrols are responses to the Zodiac killer's threat to stop a bus and shoot children.
We have specifically requested that they alert their drivers to not stop under any condition if a shot is fired or if their bus is subjected to a flat tire by the sniper. Further, that they get the children down immediately and proceed with all speed out of the air.
Everybody's, I guess, tense about it, but they all seem to be in good spirits and all seem to be going on with the job. I don't know of anybody that's quit.
You're not afraid?
No, I'm not. No, not too afraid.